you're waiting for the AI hype to die down before you take action, you're missing the biggest shift in the business industry. For leaders and entrepreneurs who feel like they are constantly playing catch-up with technology, this conversation is your roadmap. You will learn exactly how to move from just using AI tools to building truly AI-first organizations that outpace the competition and thrive into the next decade. Welcome to the Champion Mindset Collective. I'm your host, Anthony Dahya. Today, we're talking about the future that is arriving a lot faster than most people expected. The question for every leader isn't whether AI will change your industry, it is whether you'll be the one leading that change or be left behind. A few people have had front row seats to the AI revolution, like our next guest, Steve Brown, who is an AI futurist and a former executive at Google DeepMind and Intel. Today, he helps Fortune 100 leaders build AI-first organizations and navigate the transformation reshaping the industries. His clients include Nike, Bank of America, and Disney. He's delivered more than 500 keynotes across 5 continents and is the best-selling author of the AI Ultimatum. Steve, it's an absolute pleasure to have you on the Champion Mindset Collective. Welcome.
Anthony, it's nice to spend some time together.
100%. Absolutely. Steve, I'd love for you to share a little bit about your journey in life from childhood to now and what got you into technology and AI.
My dad, I suppose, he was a physics lecturer at a university in the UK where I grew up, and he used to bring computers home from work. He needed computers to control the equipment in his lab. He was doing low temperature physics. And so he brought all these computers home and I got to play with them. So that's quite common for kids to play with computers now. But back in the late 70s, when he was bringing them home, it was quite unusual. And I just was drawn to them. I could see then that they were going to change the world. And I wanted to learn everything I could about them. So I went on an engineering path. I got a couple of degrees in microelectronics. I learned how to build computers. But I ended up much more on the business side of things. I worked for Intel for many, many years, mostly on the business side. And then ending up in their labs as one of their 2 futurists. So I've always had an orientation. My brain just naturally thinks about what's next all the time. And so that's how it got started, and I've kept doing it ever since.
Yeah. What was it like working in those organizations like Google, DeepMind, and Intel?
Intel, I worked there during the time when the way we thought about it was the great scientists and artists and innovators stand on our shoulders. They're using the computers that we make to do amazing things, whether that's making a Pixar movie or building amazing products, whatever it might be. And we always felt that responsibility, and that felt good. It felt good to be part of that, and we felt that energy. By the time I left there in 2016, it wasn't quite that way. And then going to Google DeepMind, just such an amazing company, run by one of the smartest people on the planet, Sir Demis Hassabis. And just a lovely atmosphere. The culture there, one of their tenets, their core 5 tenets is kindness. And I was at Intel, which was a very sharp-elbowed place. And to go to DeepMind and find that when people were volunteering to help you, they genuinely wanted to help you to do things was really just lovely. I couldn't recommend working there enough. I love DeepMind.
Now, you said you got into computers and you loved working with computers. Question I have for you is, in terms of AI, what is your first, recollection or the first time that you used AI in your early days?
Depends how you define AI, right? I was always trying to make something that seemed intelligent, that seemed smart. When I first started, I was 10, so I wasn't able to program something to learn. But I knew from an early age I didn't want to have kids myself. And I always thought that computers were the closest I would get to creating life. So I'd just been fascinated. And I left Intel in 2016. In large part, I wouldn't say out of protest, but because I knew that AI was going to be the next big thing, and Intel didn't have a strategy essentially around AI. So the first time I really got to use it for myself, like a real proper AI, was using the internal stuff. There was a platform called Chinchilla that I had access to as an employee of DeepMind. And that was the first time I got to use a large language model. This was before ChatGPT came out. And the mind reeled at what the possibilities of a language model were going to be.
And the reality is that we've been using AI for a very long time, right? AI has been around since I would say the 50s and 60s, maybe?
Well, certainly as a concept, the perceptron, which was just a two-layered neural network, has been around since those timeframes. But really, in terms of the impact on business and our lives, even though we might not be aware of it, it's really the last 15 or so years, right? Every time you open your email inbox, the spam filter is an AI. We didn't call it that at the time, but that's what's happening. And anytime you get a recommendation, whether it's a product to buy or a show you might want to watch or a song you might want to listen to, that is a recommendation engine built on machine learning in the background. So yeah, it's really been around for quite some time. And AI has become sort of the unsung hero of a lot of businesses around the world because it just has been running in the background, quietly optimizing things.
Yeah, you got your Netflix, different streaming apps that have been doing that for a while now, where based on what you watch, it then adjusts what it shows to you based on what you are watching. Now, Steve, you talk about the different waves of AI, the predictive, the generative, and now the agentic or physical AI. For leaders who feel overwhelmed by the speed of change, how should they be categorizing these technologies to make sense for them?
Yeah, it's almost unfair, right? Business leaders are busy running their business and now they're required to learn about all this other stuff. That's why I wrote the book that I wrote, which I'm sure we'll talk about in a little bit, but as a guide to help leaders through this. So the way to think about it is that AI is not a monolithic technology. It's not just one thing. The same way the internet is not one thing. There are waves of change coming over time. And so the AI we were just talking about, machine learning, has been around for 15 years, good for helping you sort data. It's good for machine vision, those sorts of applications. But now we're in the generative AI era. The difference between the old stuff and the new stuff, the old stuff took existing data and sorted it and found patterns in it. Generative AI, the new stuff that's been really on the market since about 2022, generates new data. It's creating answers, it's creating images, it's creating videos, that sort of thing. So that's the broad categories. And then inside that generative AI, you've got different waves coming at us. So the chatbot era, reasoning AI, which is able to use system 2 thinking. So the way our brains work, you've got system 1 and system 2 thinking. If I ask you, Anthony, what's 2 plus 2? The answer is, right, very well done. Not a hard one, but that's system 2, system 1 thinking. Because you quickly recall, that's reflexive recall of information. If I ask you how many golf balls fit inside a Toyota Camry, the answer is...
Never clue.
Right. Apparently it's around 51,000, but it doesn't matter. Okay. But that requires you to think through that problem, right? To figure out how you might solve it. You might go online and find the volume of a golf ball, the internal volume of a Camry, do some sums. You might go and buy a Toyota Camry and buy some golf balls and open the sunroof and pour them in until it's full and count them, right? But there's different methods of the way you could solve that problem. That's what modern reasoning AIs do, is they come up with different ways to solve a problem, and that's enabled them to come up with breakthroughs in mathematics, and hopefully we're going to see broader breakthroughs in science as a result. So we're now firmly in that reasoning AI era. What comes next is agentic AI and physical AI. So they build on each other. Agentic AI uses that reasoning capability to be able to plan and execute on quite complex tasks. So if you're only familiar with a chatbot where you ask it a question and it thinks and then you wait while it comes back with the answer. You've got this sort of turn-by-turn conversation. With an agent, what you're doing is you can give it a quite complicated task, and it will go away and sort of think about it. And it'll break it down into subtasks and then execute on that. So it has a memory, so it can learn over time, and it has the ability to use tools so that it can actually act in the real world, whether that is talking to your CRM or using a Google search or using a tax calculator, right? You can use all these different tools to do useful things for you. And it executes in loops and relentlessly does that until it performs your task. So you can think about them, or start to think about them now, as digital employees. So you can give them a complex task, and some of the better agents will operate for hours, and it's going to soon be days at a time to work on complicated tasks. So it's radically different than the chatbots and the reasoning AIs that we're all familiar with. And what comes after that, you take an agent and put it inside a robotic body, and you get physical AI. So an AI that's able to interact physically with the world, and that, of course, changes all physical labor.
Yeah. And we're seeing the production of that. Right now, China's building thousands, millions of robots. Elon Musk is doing the Optimus as well. But those robots have also been around for a while, right? Like Amazon have been using robots for sorting and packing and so on. So some of it's been around for a while, but what you're saying now is that the AI is going to be within the physical.
Yeah, the big difference now, because yes, you're right. Amazon has, I think it's now over 2 million robots in their fulfillment centers globally, and they're planning to put in a lot more. The difference with these robots is the newer robots are learning systems. So the robots that build our cars and weld them, they're just repetitive. The Amazon robots are getting a little smarter, but they're just running in loops and they're not super smart. The latest robots are using advanced models so that you can talk to them, you can give them commands, and they can reason their way through problems and then have long time horizon execution. So you can say, hey, I mean, this is a demonstration that Figure did. Figure is a leading robotics company, probably the leading robotics company in the world. And they make humanoid robots, so they're in our likeness. And they told it, okay, stand there on that line. And then as the packages come by, grab them, whatever the package was. It could be a box, it could be a distortable packet, and flip them to make sure that the barcode is up. That's all that they do. And that's a person's job.
I saw that video, yeah.
Not a very exciting job. And they thought, well, let's see if it'll do it for an hour. Let's see if it'll do it for a day. And after 8 days, they're like, okay, we'll call it good. It just keeps going.
Yeah, I saw the video. There was a comparison. There was a human and then there was a robot doing the same thing. And it was just phenomenal how the humans obviously can only do it for so long, and then the robot just kept going. So what kind of practical use cases and scenarios will these practical AIs or physical AIs be doing, apart from sorting mail or sorting boxes and turning them around?
I think they picked a relatively simple example, but at least it's one that requires some level of dexterity as a demonstration. But I think areas that are fair game for automation, delivery, Boston Dynamics, another leading producer, just showed their robot dog Spot delivering packages in the neighborhood. You combine that with a humanoid robot to load Spot, the dog robot, up, and an autonomous vehicle, an autonomous van, because that's the other side of physical AI is self-driving cars and vans. And suddenly you have an autonomous delivery network and an autonomous logistics network, because now you've got robots picking. Figure has robots in the BMW car factory, and they're picking parts and kitting them ready for production. So I think you're going to see them in roles, not all roles, but some roles in manufacturing, certainly delivery logistics, working in home. These robot companies realized that we would all like that robot butler that we were promised in the 1950s. It was coming just around the corner to shake you a martini when you get home after a long, hard day. So I think that will be one. And then another really big area is taking care of the elderly. It doesn't mean that we just slough off all the old people onto robots and forget about them. That would be tragic. But to support humans in caring for older people, I think robots can play an enormously important role. And so complementing human care of other humans, I think will be huge. Companionship, tidying up, making sure they take their medications, those sorts of things.
Yeah, and also like heavy lifting and things like that humans get worn out from doing that day in, day out. And what does this mean for people who are probably sitting here watching this thinking, well, what does that mean for my job or what I'm doing? Some of these people could be working in these kind of roles. What does it mean for them?
For some people, it means they're going to have to find something else to do. And that's not a great message that people love hearing. For some people, it means they're going to move into more managerial positions. And we're always going to need human oversight of robots and of digital employees in the form of agents. I work with business leaders around the world, and their instinct is often, well, okay, how can we use this technology to cut costs, right? Let's do labor substitution. Let's replace people with technology. And I always tell them that is absolutely the wrong answer, because doing labor substitution, all it does is save you a little bit of cost in the short term. The opportunity with robots and with agents, with digital employees, is to amplify the people that you already have and to put them into oversight positions and to increase your impact. So rather than growing your company incrementally by cutting a bit of cost and maybe growing 10, 20% as a result, you could use agents and robots to amplify the impact that you have and grow the company 10x or 20x. So if you follow that path where you are on the cost-cutting tear, which I call 20th century thinking, I don't blame leaders. It's what they've learned to do for the last 50 years of all the stuff that's come out of IT. But if you embrace 21st century thinking and you look to amplify the people that you have, you are going to get those cost savings because you're going to grow your scale. And if you have a company, a 21st century company and a 20th century mindset company, and they go head to head and compete, who's going to win? The company with the scale. So this is the biggest challenge I think leaders face, is not following that trigger instinct to say, oh, well, let's use this to cut costs. No, that's the wrong answer.
No, it should be about how do we use this to, like you said, amplify and empower our people, and how can that then create more revenue for us? Because if your people already know how to do something and they can systemize it and get AI, digital AI or physical AI to do that, then you're actually empowering your people. You're actually giving them more tools. What you're saying is the CEOs and managers need to start thinking differently about their day-to-day operations.
Yeah, and to get back to that delivery example, I could see a human driver with a van, because self-driving is quite a difficult challenge, especially if you're in a rural environment or something with a complicated and ever-changing environment and weather and that sort of things to deal with. A human driver with a robot team, and that allows them to just achieve so much more. So you've got to be thinking about, how do I pair humans and machines to have greater impact for people?
And also the aging people, right? So I'm 55, and I'm sure there's a lot of people who've lost their jobs and they're in that wisdom network. What happens to those people?
I like that, the wisdom network. Yeah, it's great.
Right? So they've got the wisdom, and then you've got the young ones that are getting the jobs and so on. What are some opportunities for the wisdom network to work along with the young ones and AI, so that everyone's involved, not just the young people?
Yeah, when it comes to agents and robots, so digital and physical synthetic employees is kind of the way to think about it. The workforce of the future is going to be people, and yes, there will still be lots of people in the workforce, digital employees in the form of agents, and physical robots. And you need to make sure that they all work well together. Agents and robots are good at knowledge that's written down. Think facts that are known. What humans are good at is tacit knowledge, especially people from the wisdom collective, right? The ones who've been around the block a few times. They know where all the bodies are buried. They know what the challenges really are. They're able to bring a level of judgment, taste, ethics, bring their experience to bear. And you need all those to work gracefully together. And the job of leaders today is to build those teams and make them high functioning, so that you're taking advantage of people who bring that tacit knowledge and experience, people who are younger and have less of that, but got to get up and go, and also now agents and robots, and have them work effectively together as a team.
Yeah, and that's where collaboration and co-creation happens, where you're actually working together, and you're not just sort of taking the older generation and just putting a heap and saying your shelf life is over.
Yeah, there's a lot of knowledge captured in their heads. Yeah.
Yeah. So I guess for the Wisdom Collective, there's also the upskilling part of it as well. How do we keep those people when they're in the organization also, but also when they leave the organization as well? So for a leader who feels behind right now, where's the most logical place that they should start focusing today?
Well, shameless plug, get my book, because I wrote this for you. I recognized there was this gap. There are plenty of AI books out there, but there's not a handbook for business leaders, particularly senior business leaders, on what do you do about all this? How do you integrate agents into your workforce? What are the things you've got to worry about? So shameless plug, buy the book, AI Ultimatum. But really, I would say carve out time, invest in yourself as a leader. You know, leaders like to go on training courses and, that sort of thing, but make time for yourself, build your own AI acumen. It doesn't mean you need to know how to build it. You've got an engineering department, hopefully, to do that. But as a business leader, you need to know what the possibilities are. You should understand the lingo so that you can communicate with your engineering department. And you need to build bridges between those who are building technology and those who are going to use it. So line of business needs to be able to communicate well with IT. And as a leader, you've got to facilitate all of that conversation. But that starts with understanding what the possibilities are. And that's where people need to spend the time and understand, okay, what can AI do now? And what's the trajectory for what it'll be able to do 6 months from now? Because that's how you're going to build a business strategy, is to understand where it's going and where you need to head next.
Agree with you there. Absolutely. Now, you have a framework for transformation called Enable, Re-engineer, and Reimagine. Most
Yeah.
people are stuck in the enable phase of just trying ChatGPT. What does that actually look like to move from just using tools to engineering your business?
Yeah, I always like to do things in threes because that's what the human brain can remember. So realize that there are 3 phases, natural phases to AI transformation. I spend a lot of time with senior leaders, and the experience I kept getting in the last 6 months or so is I'd go on site to a company and the CEO would bound over and they'd be so happy, like, we got a Copilot license from Microsoft, or we just got ChatGPT or Claude. And they were almost wanting me to say, you don't need me anymore. My job is done. Well done. And I'd have to gently break it to them. That's probably 2 to 5%, if we're generous, of the effort and maybe 2% of the benefit. So once I walk them through what the 3 phases are, then the penny drops and they realize, oh, I got some work to do. So let me explain what they are. The enable phase is the one I just described. It's where you work with vendors, perhaps your existing software vendors, or maybe you're finding new software vendors, and you're bringing AI-powered tools into the organization for your employees to use. So it could be getting ChatGPT, could be getting AI-powered software for your marketing department so they can generate images. It could be using Microsoft Copilot so that people can efficiently summarize any sort of thing. That phase, great, it's necessary, but it is insufficient. You need to get to the second step as quickly as you can. And this is about 20 to 30% of the effort and maybe about 30% of the impact that you're going to have with AI. So what's the second phase? Second phase is where you re-engineer your business. You're looking at workflows, how the work gets done. You're breaking it down into tasks and you're asking the question, sometimes a tough question, given where AI is now and its capabilities and where it's going to be very soon, which of these tasks is still best done by a human? And there'll be many that are. Anything that's related to communication, building trust, connection with other human beings, relationships, judgment, still going to be done by a human. But there are some tasks that are going to be better done now or more efficiently done by an agent. Anything that's repetitive, that handles lots of complex data to make judgments that way. Or if there's a physical component to your work, then a robot. So you're building this workforce, which is a combination of people and machines, and figuring out what are the graceful handoffs between them. So the same way when you have a workflow with just humans, you have to figure out, well, what's the data that's going to move from one person to the next? Is it a contract? Is it an email? What's the data? And then what's the modality? How does that pass off? You have to figure all that stuff out. So that's plenty of work. And a lot of my clients are in that second phase now. Very few are in the third phase, which is the one where you get the most benefit. So first phase, you're treating AI like a tool. Second phase, you're re-engineering and you're treating AI now like an employee. Third phase, you're treating AI as the entire operating system of your business. It's where you become AI first and you reimagine how you create and deliver value in your business. Instead of using AI, you're now wrapping your entire business around AI as like the engine room of your business. And that's a huge leap to make. And there are very few companies that are certainly executing in that area and let alone thinking about it.
Yeah, absolutely. Agree with you there. I went on this journey, I think it was December last year or early this year, where this podcast, everything I did in this podcast was a manual effort. And it would take me a whole day to get stuff done manually. And then I thought, well, how do I systemize this? So the first thing I looked at was, okay, what tasks that am I doing that I can systemize? And what can I make better or work more efficiently? But then I went, okay, well, what can I use AI for? And then how can I build this into an ecosystem that supports me as a podcaster. And you've seen it. And in 6 months, I was able to build an ecosystem that works pretty much on its own, but I'm still involved in it. So I'm still in the loop. I still stay across it, but I don't have to do all the writing and this and that. It does it for me. It takes a transcript of this interview and creates an article, creates a practical guide, all that sort of stuff, which would take you hours to do. And then I thought, how do I help other podcasters and creators and entrepreneurs with this technology that I've built? I get in the AI workflows business that I have, a lot of people come to me and they say, what tool should I use? And I'm like, well, I don't know your business. I don't know anything about your business. How can I suggest to you what tool to use? And I think it's people kind of like just jumping into the capability before building a good mindset and also having clarity around where they're going. What are your thoughts on that in terms of your vision of your company and then making sure that AI is part of the strategy, not just an add-on?
Yeah, AI is a facilitator and an accelerator of your business strategy. It's not a strategy in and of its own. I always get that question when I do Q&A in my keynotes. I always get that question at the end, which is, well, what should you use? What do you recommend? Is it Google? Is it ChatGPT? And I just wrote a blog post on exactly this. If you go to stevebrown.ai/blog, I wrote a post on there and it's called Building Your Intelligence Portfolio. Because the answer isn't a vendor. The answer is you need a real portfolio to help you to succeed in your business. Because there are different types of models. There's the general purpose model like a ChatGPT or a Claude. But there are also vision models, media generation models, predictive models, specialist models, right? There's all these different flavors. And you need to pick the right model for the right task in your business. And then not just that, where do you get the models from? There are sort of at least 4 different ways you can get them. There's a closed model, like a ChatGPT, where you're essentially renting it. You're paying a monthly fee to have access to it, but you have no control over it. There's the open weights version, where you can download the model. You can then install it on a computer of your own, and then you have control over it. And as people found recently with the US government saying, hey, you can't have access to Claude Fable, they can just cut that off. So, if you want control over your destiny, you might want to have some of your own open weights models. There's open source, where not only do you get the weights for the model, but you get the recipe for how it was built. And then there's this homegrown model. And the homegrown model could be where you start from scratch and you build your own model to do a task based on your own proprietary data. So you're creating, you're capturing unique business value and building a competitive moat, because now you've got something that no one else has, right? Everybody can get access to ChatGPT, but you can build your own models to solve a particular business problem. That's good. And you can build that from scratch. Or what's very common now is to start with one of the many open weights models and then what's called fine tune, post-train it so that it does the particular task that you want. So you're creating it after someone's already done the very expensive, perhaps multi-billion-dollar investment to create the open weight model. Now you fine-tune it on your data to create something special and unique to you. So I encourage a lot of business leaders to think that way. And then there's the different sizes. There's the frontier models. There's the good enough models, which is probably 90%. You don't need, a genius intelligence to solve every problem. That's just wasting money. And then there's the embedded models, which are models that are small enough to go into embedded devices, whether that's on the manufacturing workfloor or inside phones or washing machines, whatever. So there's this great sort of breadth of different shapes and sizes and types of models, and leaders need to understand that and encourage their teams to explore all the opportunities.
Yeah. Now, just listening to that, I understand partly what you're saying, and others may be thinking, well, gosh, where do I even start with this? All the models and this and that. What's your advice on that?
If you're a company that's large enough to have a good sized IT department, have them do it. If you're a small company, you don't have an IT department, it's a bit overwhelming. But AI to the rescue, because AIs are now smart enough to be able to help you do this. They will, one, be your teacher and help you. You can say, hey, I don't know anything about this. I'm interested to learn. Talk to me like I'm 10, and you can learn that way. And then you can use them to be your IT department. You can use them to download these models, get your data and fine tune them, and they will help you with all of that. So don't be daunted by it. Try it. You'll be surprised at how easy it is.
Yeah. What's the biggest mistake that you see companies making when they just hand out AI tools without a deeper plan?
I just don't think they have that vision of what they could be, right? They're missing out on so much. If you can get to that third step, that third phase, and you make AI the operating system of your business and wrap your business around it, you could 10x or 20x your business. And yes, there's some financial results that you get out of that, so shareholders will be happy. But you get to show up in the world and have a much bigger impact for people, and to perhaps do so at a lower cost for people. So that's what they're missing out on, is the opportunity to serve people. And that's what I think people are missing out on, because they get stuck and think that all AI is just a tool, and it's not. There's so much more. You've got to get out of that first step and get to phases 2 and 3 as quickly as you can. Because honestly, and Anthony, this is the way I look at it, and I'll share this with your audience. I feel like, in a way, my job is to save as many brands, as many companies as I can, because the companies that get stuck at step 1 will not be around 5 years from now. And that's a very sad thing to say, but I think it's true.
Yeah. I mean, you're seeing a lot of businesses shutting down in this current economic climate that we're in. Here in New Zealand, every day you're seeing companies just shutting down. So yeah, absolutely. How do you measure success in that first enable phase?
I think it's not just productivity, which is the obvious go-to, right? Are your teams getting more done in less time? Yes, of course, that's one measure. I think you also need to look at employee satisfaction. That's the part people miss, and good AI deployments will see gains in both productivity and efficiency, and boosting other vectors. So employee satisfaction, employee quality of what you're doing. Is the quality going up? Is the creativity improving? There are AIs that help people to explore a bigger design space and boost their creativity. So focusing on productivity only, I think, is a mistake. Really thinking about all the vectors of success is vital.
Yeah, exactly. Now, in the final step, which is reimagining, becoming truly AI first, that sounds like quite a big identity shift for an organization. What does that mindset shift require the leadership team to have?
It requires you to shift the way that you show up. I've been in leadership positions, management positions for a good portion of my career. And one of the things that you do every day is you find ways to manage with limited resources, right? You've got a fixed amount of headcount. If you're lucky, you might get a few more people here and there. You've got a budget to manage. Maybe you've got some capital equipment that you can use. And as a manager, you're doing the best job you can with those 3 things. What AI lets you do, because now you can start to have digital employees, you can complement your human headcount. You start to break that barrier with robots. Maybe you can break that barrier. They become capital equipment, which is kind of weird. And you see, the mindset now is not how do I manage in scarcity, but how do I build superhuman teams that are collaborations of humans and machines working together, and have an abundant mindset? How do I create abundance and create exponentially more impact using that team? And that's a different mindset, different way of showing up as a leader for the 2030s. And you've got to start that now.
Yeah. And there must be you must see a lot of people in that scarcity mindset. How are you helping them get into that abundance mindset?
I think we're all jaded, right? We've all been around the block a few times, and it's hard to change patterns. I get that. And so I found the best way is to help people see examples of what does an AI first business look like? How is it radically different? To start to get the cogs turning and inspire them to think, okay, we could do something like this then. And so I just give them as many examples as I can of AI first organizations. For your listeners, viewers, I can give you one now. Shein does a really impressive job. Shein is the Chinese clothing company. They're fast fashion. I'm not a big fan of fast fashion for a few reasons, but they provide a great example of an AI first business. They have AIs that look for signals from their customers, so that when they're on the website, if you dwell on an image a little bit longer than another one, if you put it in your wish list, if you put it in your cart, you don't buy it, but you put it in your cart, you're thinking about it. They look for all those signals, and they have an AI that then takes those signals, takes the existing designs of products that they have in the past, and generates new ones. So it might take an old design and with a different fabric, or it might change the length of the sleeves. And it's coming up with these designs all the time. And they generate 3,000 new designs a day. 3,000, Anthony. Your design department can't do that. And then they put them out on the website to see what the reaction is. And they've generated the image of them. They don't exist yet. And then they see what the reaction is. And if there's been good reaction and people start to order them, then they'll do a short batch. They run like 100. So they're not making 10,000 of them. They make 100 or 300. And they see what the signal is. In real time, they got that feedback loop. And creating an AI first business is about creating rapid learning loops where you improve over time. So they sense the market in real time. They create products they think are going to fit with the market. And if something's popular, they ramp up production. If it's not popular, gone. Never see it again. So that's the kind of mindset you need, is how could we get to 3,000 products a day and understand each individual customer's needs and wants and try and meet them? You can't do that with just a traditional workforce.
That's amazing. I was going to say, how do they actually then make it? What you just explained is that depending on how many people are looking at it, then they'll be able to get that feedback and make it. So it's kind of like
still made by humans, by the way. They're not made by robots.
Yeah. And it's like a just-in-time type thing, isn't it? Rather than sort of
kind of, yeah. Yeah. It's trying to predict demand before it happens.
Yeah. And that's where, like, even at data science, not so long ago, we were doing predictive and prescriptive analytics. And this is the same thing being applied at a different level. So how does the role of a human leader change when the business is truly AI first?
Now everybody in the business, every human that's in an AI first business is now a manager of machines. Mm-hmm. So you all now have to be overseeing machines. And the role that you're playing is to, you've built this operating system is what I've been calling it, but it's an engine based around AI and robots that's going to do most of the work. And the humans are there for oversight, because robots and agents will make mistakes. So you need to have an escalation path. So if something goes wrong, a human's going to step in and fix it and guide the robot or the AI to not make the mistake next time. You also need them there to bring judgment and ethics, and then to decide, okay, we've built this amazing engine. Where do we want to point it? Where do we want to go? That's all the human role is, to decide, how are we going to continue to develop this engine and maybe build new engines aimed at new businesses and new marketplaces? And where are we going to take it next? That's the role of leaders in these AI first businesses. And it requires not just vision, but boldness. You would have courage to follow these things, and to try and do things that maybe traditionally you could never have dreamed of. That takes some chutzpah, right? And a different way of thinking things. And it means you have to be constantly curious and constantly learning to keep up with this and digest what the possibilities are and come up with a plan that moves the business forward.
Yeah, absolutely. Now we're moving towards a world of, like we talked about before, Agentic and physical AI. How do these shifts change the internal culture of a company, and how should leaders prepare their people for a future where robots and agents are part of the team? So, which is exactly what we've been talking about. But how does a business actually start doing this? How do they start applying this in their business?
Yeah, I have a background in communications. That's why I talk a lot, I suppose. But I was in communications when I was at Intel as one of my many roles I had then. And I worked in leadership communications, and that's where you have to start. You have to explain to people what the benefit is for them and for the company in bringing these machines into their lives. Because otherwise you're going to get massive resistance. So what I recommend to people is think about the core purpose of your business. What's the humanistic purpose? What are you doing for people? Whether it's making coffee or, making wood to build houses, whatever it might be, it doesn't matter. Think about that core humanistic purpose. Make sure that you've got all of your employees laser focused on that purpose. Make sure you're a mission driven organization, and then help every employee understand how could we use AI to amplify our ability to execute on that mission. So you've got to explain the what's in it for us, the WIFU, and the what's in it for me. For each individual employee, why is it going to make their job easier? How are you going to offload the boring, repetitive work and help them have a much more fulfilling job, improve job satisfaction? How is it going to be easier? You want to know that at the end of the day, they're going to go home having enjoyed their job more than before AI came. So all of that work has to be done. The other thing I would encourage leaders to do, include people in the design of the workflows with AIs for two reasons. One, if you don't feel included, you're going to push back on it hard, and you're trying to create supporters, not saboteurs.
Yeah.
I had a client who rolled out agents without talking to their employees, and their employees quit. They're like, no, we're not going to use these. And then they were really screwed. So that's the first reason. And then the second reason is the way that it's written in the manual of how things get done in your company are not the way they actually get done. Humans are very enterprising. We find workarounds, we find better ways to do things. So if you design agents or some sort of AI solution for the world that you think is, it won't work. You have to design for the world that is, not the world that you imagine. And that means involving frontline employees in that design.
Mm. Yeah, I've had this conversation with many people where people say, I've got processes, and I'm like, how efficient are they? And they say, what do you mean? I say, well, you do realize that processes are often made up of workarounds and band-aids. And they're like, ah. And so it's like, well, also, if you've got a process, how do you know it's working efficiently? Right? So, and as you said, involve your people, because your people know how the work gets done.
Exactly.
Right. And they can help you by identifying which tasks take the longest. And that's how you can then make your processes more efficient, by improving those tasks. So,
Bingo.
yeah, 100%. So,
and don't take away the part of the jobs that humans really love. Help them amplify the time that they spend on the things that humans are uniquely good at, whether it is FaceTime with customers or being creative, thinking about what's next. That's what you want to do.
Because the reality is that a lot of what we do is tied to the identity that we have as well of ourselves.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
If we all of a sudden lose that identity, let's face it, most people's identity is tied to their jobs, right? And you take that away and they don't really know who they are. And I remember watching this video. It was funny. It was like, it had Jack Nicholson, I think, or someone, and Adam Sandler. And the question asked is, who are you? And Adam Sandler's going, I'm this, 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 this. And no, that's your job. Who are you? He goes, I'm a father. I'm this, I'm empathetic. And no, that's your characteristics. But who are you? And it was just absolutely hilarious, because it really makes you think about who you are under the core of who you are. So it's so important to keep.
And it's never too late for any of us to start that work, that self-reflection work, because the long term here, and I don't know whether it's 50 years, 100 years, 20 years, we could live in a post-labor world where robots and AI are so good, they can do everything for us and just take care of us and support all the needs we have. And of course, we have to reimagine the economy then. But at that point, whenever it comes, we will all need to be able to answer that question. Well, several questions. Who am I? What's important to me? What makes me happy? And if you start thinking about that stuff now, it's not too soon.
Yeah, 100%. What are some of the specific skills that leaders need to develop to manage AI agents alongside the human employees?
Agents they're getting better, but you should think of them as PhD level smart, naive interns that get things wrong. So you have to watch them like a hawk. And you have to recognize that they're going to work on a different cadence than humans. They're able to go away and work on a zillion things much, much faster than people. So you have to develop the skill where you understand, one, that you've got to keep an eye on them, and two, that you can expect them to operate on a completely different timeline. If you see a flea jumping close up, you think, how does it move so fast? That's kind of what agents do. So plan for that. And I think the biggest thing is managing the workforce, managing the humans to make sure that they can thrive in that environment. And that means carving out positions where the humans are going to be, where the agents are going to be, and making sure you rally that team. Agents will need motivation. I know this might sound bizarre, but part of your job as a leader is going to be to properly motivate and lead agents, to give them clear definitions of the goals of what their work is. It takes effort to go from an agent to a digital employee, because really there you're defining a role and an identity, as well as just, hey, this is a task I want you to do. But I think what leaders will need to do is to recognize that to turn an agent into a digital employee, they're going to need to motivate it, recognize that the agent has judgment, to reward it, and to give it an identity. I don't want to say a sense of self, but clearly define its role so that it can be successful.
Mm.
And AIs can be a bit literal. So you have to be really careful about defining that role in a way that an agent is going to understand and then execute within.
Yeah, absolutely. I was talking to Craig Kaplan. He's worked with some of the Nobel Prize winners, and also we were talking about superintelligence and a whole lot of different things. But one of the things that we talked about was the agents in AI is like our children, and we've got to nurture them just like we do with our own children. So you've got to take the time to make sure that they are doing the right things the right way, and then guide them, and then giving them enough information so that they've got context as to what you want them to do. Yeah,
exactly. And it's recognizing there is that naivete. They might be super smart because they're trained on, if you're using a smart agent, it's been trained on the contents of the internet. It knows a lot about a lot of things. And yet they can still be very naive about the world and what you're trying to achieve. So you just need to recognize, like you say, they're kind of like children.
It's almost like they've got a bit of a personality. My ChatGPT, I do my ideation with ChatGPT and I build in Lovable AI. And at times it goes 100 miles an hour and it's like, oh, but what about this? Or what about this? And I'm like, hey, calm down. We're just going to focus on, we're just focusing on this bit for now because I can't go as fast as you. So let's just focus on this and then we'll look at that at a later time. And then it goes, okay, no problem. I've got that. Yeah, not going to go so far. So
but you've learned to do that over time, Anthony, right? And that's what I would tell managers and leaders is there's no substitute for just trying this stuff, because you learn this over time. The same way they learn to be good leaders of humans from experience, you're only going to learn to be a good leader of an agent if you try it and you learn what works and what doesn't.
Yeah, it's funny because just before this call, I've been building this plugin that helps me get information via an API from a platform, and it said, "Oh, you got to do this," and I'm like, "Hang on, I'm not that technical.
Step by step.
I am technical, but I said, this is something new to me. I want to learn, but can you step me through it step by step?" And
I do the same thing. Yeah.
Okay, no problem. Do this. Make sure you check this. And so, and it was interesting because one of the companies I'm working with who are doing the work for me in the Philippines, she said to me, I've built a Claude plugin and you just can run it. I'm like, hang on, I don't know what this Claude plugin is. I don't know how to run it. I don't even have Claude. I have ChatGPT. So I said, can I build this into my ChatGPT? And so rather than me going and subscribing to Claude, I've now built it in my ChatGPT. So what I did is I took that Claude plugin and I said, hey, Chat, can you build this exactly? And can we run this in Chat? And it said, yep. went and did all the comparisons, rebuilt it, and gave me the instructions on how to install it and everything. So there we go. Yeah.
That's what leaders need to recognize. It's not that hard because AI will help you do a lot of it.
Yeah. I think it's going to take some time, some patience, and the willingness to learn. So the mindset that, hey, yes, I don't know this, but having that mindset of a champion where I'll figure it out, I'll make it work, I'll learn, right? And it's the difference between a fixed mindset and a growth mindset, where most people will say, well, I'm not technical, but you don't have to be. You can learn.
Yeah, with AI, it amplifies us, right? And it turns a non-technical person into someone who is able to achieve what was once a technical task. It
100%.
lets you speak other languages. It enables people and amplifies them in all these myriad ways. And it's recognizing that and using it to your advantage.
Yeah. On my website for the AI Workflows Agency, there's a slogan at the top. It says, AI amplifies what lies beneath.
There you go.
So there we go.
Beautifully put.
Now, Steve, in your book, the AI Ultimatum, you provide a guide for today's leaders. Let's unpack that book a bit. And could you tell us, first of all, what inspired you to write the book, and give us a little bit of a backstory of the book, and then also we'll explore a couple of other points on there in terms of how leaders can use that book to move themselves forward.
Yeah, I mean, so for 10 years or so, I spend a lot of time on planes, spending time with clients, helping them understand AI and technology more broadly, and how they should harness it to move their businesses forward and accelerate what they're doing. And I kept seeing the same pattern over and over. And this was sort of through 22 and 23. Leaders just felt like deer in headlights. They knew this was a monumental change, and they didn't feel equipped to know what to do about it. And so they were sort of in this sort of hunkered down position of just trying to get by and maybe, dipping their toe in that first step of the transformations, just enabling and trying ChatGPT, whatever it was. And they knew they needed to do much more, but had no idea where to start. And I saw that over and over and over. And so in early 2024, I started planning for the book. I found a collaborator to write with me, Paul Hill, who he's an amazing writer, Times Higher Education Supplement, USA Today, really good writer, because I wanted it to be a decent read. So, I had a proper writer work with me, and we collaborated really deeply to get this on the page and make it a guide for leaders. So the structure of the book, it sort of walks you through the different types of AI. And then at the end of each chapter, there are questions for you to ask and answer to help you think through, what are the things you need to worry about when you're implementing agents, for example? What are the things you've got to put in place? So every chapter walks you through the different waves of it, and then it wraps up with some tools that actually helps you think through, how might I use AI to transform a particular role in my business? Starting with a human being, what AI might I imagine? I created this tool called the AI Innovation Canvas, which you get a link to download when you get the book. And it just helps you systematize and think through, okay, well, how might I take all these different building blocks I just learned about in chapters 1 through 9 and apply them to solve a real business problem for a real person, either a customer or for an employee in my business, so that they can perform better. So that was the structure I took. It wraps up with some thoughts about where this goes in the next 25 years, but that's what the book's about. And it's designed to be a handbook for leaders to navigate them through the next 5 years or so.
So if you could distill down the core challenge of this decade in one truth for a business owner, what would that be?
One truth for a business owner. I mean, the reason I called the book The AI Ultimatum is, one, you've got no choice. It's like innovate or die. You need to embrace AI or you won't be as relevant. There are very few businesses that maybe aren't that, like maybe a massage therapist, but there's some businesses that are immune from this, but not many.
Well, in saying that, I saw a video where robots were actually doing massage.
Yeah, they can, but do you want a robot massage? I don't. So that was the one side of it. It's the obvious part of the AI Ultimatum. But the less obvious part is we need to roll AI out responsibly and thoughtfully and safely, and imagine the world that we want to build with AI. And we want to make sure that that is a human first world that is supported by AI. And so that's what I would really encourage leaders to be the main focus is, how do I use AI to make things better for people?
Yeah, absolutely. What is one thing that the leader can do tomorrow morning to start this journey?
I mean, obviously order my book.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, start making time in your day to learn about AI. Invest in yourself as a leader, because maybe no one else will, and make time, carve out time in your day. If you can do 30 minutes a day, great. If you can do an hour a week, okay. But make time where you say, okay, I'm going to learn more about AI today. I'm going to maybe sign up for some AI newsletters. You can sign up for mine on my website. Mine's sort of more of a thought piece for leaders, but you might get AI news that you get daily. But just start to make time. I know it's a big ask because you're busy managing your business, but you kind of have no choice. So make time for yourself and invest in yourself and build your business acumen around AI.
Yeah. Now, why do you believe that this is an ultimatum for business rather than just like an option?
I think it comes back to the conversation we had maybe 40 minutes ago about the 20th century business and the 21st century business. If your competitor uses AI to amplify their ability to serve customers, to deliver at scale, if you deliver at scale, that's going to collapse costs. You're just not going to be competitive. And so you have to invest in AI and stay on the treadmill just to keep up, because it happened over and over, right? If you think about the internet era, there were traditional companies who did not embrace the internet well. Classic example in the US here, there's a department store called Sears, and they thought that embracing the internet would be scanning pages from their catalog, because they were a catalog business as well, and putting them online. Contrast that with an internet first business like Target, right? They fully embraced the internet. You could buy online. You could buy online and return in the shop. You had, all their inventory systems were online, all their availability, fully embraced it. And when Amazon came along as an internet native business, so they were born online, anybody that wasn't internet first, at least, was gone. Sears is out of business, Blockbuster's out of business. Netflix is an internet first business because they started with physical media and DVDs, and then they went all online. So the only way to inoculate yourself against an AI native attack from a company that's been started on AI is to become AI first as quickly as possible. So that's what the true AI ultimatum is all about. It's a race.
Yeah. Thank you for explaining that. Is there anything that we haven't discussed about the book, or something that you'd wanted to share today that you'd like to share?
As a futurist, and I call myself a futurist because I've been doing it for a long time now, you're trying to ask and answer two questions. What is the world that we want to build? And what is the world that we want to avoid? And I sort of deputize you all as futurists listening to this. I call myself that, but you can too. Get involved in conversations, whether it's in the workplace or with your friends and communities. What is the future that we want to build with AI? We all have agency in this. This is not something that's just going to happen to us. We need to decide what we want. So that's the parting thought I want to leave with people is recognize you have agency and get involved in the conversation.
Steve, people may be watching this or they're listening to this and they want to find out more about, of course, they can get the book, tell us where the book's available, but also how can they connect with you, contact you, and maybe get you to help them in their business?
Sure. So my email address, I have a very boring name, Steve Brown, and it's just stevebrown.ai. That's my website. You can email me at at stevebrown.ai if you want to get hold of me directly. There's a contact form, my website as well. And there's details about a training course I have there. The book is up there. And you can find the book in most online booksellers. So Amazon has it, Barnes & Noble has it. I'm not sure where you are in the world. You may not have those different bookstores, but it's generally available online.
Yeah.
And you can get hardback, paperback as well.
Awesome. And we'll put those links in the show notes, but also there'll be a dedicated page for this episode on the Champion Mindset Collective, so people can go there. There'll be an article written, it will have all your links. It'll have an article that's written from the transcript and the practical guide, which is written from the article. The practical guide serves as a takeaway, a free takeaway that you can download for free, and you can start this journey. And what it does is it's a 3-page PDF that gives you specific, concise information and reflection points and practical steps that you can start taking now as a leader.
That's great.
In your business. Yeah.
And what you've reminded me, Anthony, is if people go to my website, I should have said this. If you go to stevebrown.ai and scroll down, you'll see there's a free resource there that you can download called Artificial Wisdom. And it's a link to a Notion site that I keep updated. And it's, if you're trying to build your AI acumen, it's books you might want to read, podcasts you might want to listen to, YouTube channels to subscribe to, and tools to try, AI-powered tools to try, white papers to read. So there's lots of resources there as well. And that's available for free to anybody that goes to my website.
Yeah, awesome. So we'll make sure that people get that as well. Now, Steve, we are at the quickfire round, which is 6 quick questions. You can answer these in a short sentence or a single word. And the first question for you is, how do you define success, and has that definition evolved for you over time?
I think when I was a young man, success was, in a nice car and a nice house. Today's success is knowing that you're showing up in the world every day and helping people.
100%. Who's been your greatest inspiration and why?
My dad, of course. But in terms of my business, probably Steve Jobs, because he taught me focus and exquisite communication.
What is something that you believe that others may disagree with?
That we're going probably to a post-labor world where we can all live a life of abundance because of AI.
If you could go back and give young Steve some advice, what would it be?
Don't sweat the small stuff, mate.
I've heard that so many times. And what is one message that you'd like to share with the world?
If we get this right, we could live in an incredible world, but we need to collectively make it so. We can use AI to do bad things, and we see that all around us. And we can use it to do amazing things to extend the human lifespan and health span, to help people make sure they have food to eat and live lives of dignity. I think we all can be a part of imagining a better world using AI. And I encourage everybody to participate in that. I said it before. I deputize you all as futurists. Figure out the world we want to avoid and the world we want to build together.
Yeah, absolutely. What does it mean to you to be a champion and have a champion mindset?
Anytime you have to overcome adversity, it could be a small thing, could be overcoming your own temper, it could be achieving some monumental task like getting a degree, and everything in between. Anytime you have a barrier and you get over it, you're a champion.
Steve, thank you for such a grounded and insightful look at where we are headed. It's clear that the AI first journey is as much as about leadership mindset as it is about technology itself. If you're a leader or an event manager looking to bring this level of clarity to your team, I highly recommend connecting with Steve and checking out his book, The AI Ultimatum. If you've enjoyed this episode, please subscribe, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Let's keep building that champion mindset. Also, if you're a small business wanting to get some clarity around where you're going, then I also have an AI clarity assessment that I do, that I work with businesses to understand your business and help you move forward in the best way possible. So connect with me. There'll be a link in the show notes to go take that assessment. And lastly, I just want to say you are loved, you are worthy, champion your life, champion your greatness, and have an amazing day.